I'm going to give you an evidence-based summary of the UK and the Wales's connection to the global rollout of sex education. I'm going to start with this document here, and this is the Sexuality Education in Europe and Central Asia. This is an overview of 25 countries. In this document, the UK is referred to as a country, okay? So you'll get to see what I'm talking about in just a minute. Let's take a look inside. First of all, we'll go to page 8. Remarkable progress has been made in the European region in developing and integrating sexuality education curricula in formal school settings. In 20 of the 25 countries, there is currently a law, policy or strategy either requiring or supporting it. In about all but one country, the UK. Most of this development took place during the years 2000 to 2016. In March 2017, a legal change took place in the UK when it was decided to make sexuality education a statutory subject, which means it must be taught in all schools of the country, and now also including the private ones. In 3 of the remaining 4 countries, some of the sexuality education has nevertheless been implemented or is being prepared. As a result, it can be concluded that school sexuality education is now the rule in the European region. So what does this tell us? This tells us that in March 2017, there were changes made in the UK, and that's when they decided they were going to join the global rollout of sex education. Let's have a look what else it has to say. The WHO BZGA, Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe 2010, was used extensively in making this progress. In 8 of the countries, it was used to inform politicians and other decision makers and to develop and adapt curricula. In 4 other countries, it was used only for the development or adoption of curriculum. And in 2 or more countries, it was used to inform politicians and decision makers only. So that tells us that WHO, the World Health Organization, BZGA, Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe 2010, that tells us that document was used to inform politicians and other decision makers. So that was a document they used to persuade everyone, basically. And we will look into that in a minute, but let's just turn to page 174 and see what it's got to say about the UK. Page 174, the United Kingdom. In brackets there you see England with a star by the side. That means that the questionnaire referred only to England and not the United Kingdom, and was filled in as such. However, most but not all the information presented also applies to other parts of the United Kingdom. Here it says it became mandatory in schools in 2019. And sure it did. What we found last year in September was the sexual stimulation in 241 schools in England, and that was also part of the United Nations. So what that page tells us is the studies, the questionnaire they carried out and what they reported on in this document was carried out in England, but it applies to the rest of the UK. It also said they were starting it from September 2019. Well, it did. They started the sexual stimulation in 241 schools in England. But that was part of the United Nations, and we'll come back to that later on. We'll discuss that in more detail then. It's got a bit more relevance later on. From there, let's have a look. If you're not entirely convinced that includes Wales as well, let's take a look what it has to say a bit further down. Page 177. Opposition to sexuality education. There is no significant opposition to sexuality education in the United Kingdom. In fact, the reverse is true. The statutory status for comprehensive sexuality education programme had the support of 5 parliamentary select committees, the Children's Commissioner, the Chief Health Medical Officer, and many others, as you can see there, guys. The UK, as we know it, has 4 devolved governments for education, but that document mentions 5 select committees. And seeing as there is no documentation for Ireland, as in Southern Ireland, we're going to assume it makes better sense that Southern Ireland was included in our 5 select committees. I also like to point out that we know a select committee was carried out years before in 2014. We have the report that Professor David Payton put towards that committee when they were discussing parental opt-out back then. If you're not entirely convinced now as Wales, let's take a look at our most recent document published by our Welsh Government. This is the consultation report published on the 4th of December 2020. Take a look here. This is what our government has to say. Page 121. In 2017, the Welsh Government commissioned a sex and relationships expert panel to make recommendations on the future of sex and relationships education in Wales. Its report was published in January 2018 and concluded current law and guidance is outdated, provision under existing arrangements was limited, unrepresentative and inconsistent. So what exactly is this document that sealed the deal for us? This WHO BZGA, Standards for Sexuality Education in Europe. What is this document? Let's take a closer look, because it seems to have satisfied our politicians. It's even satisfied our children's commissioners, according to these documents. So we keep hearing sex education is age appropriate, and it also confirms that here, guys, right? So age appropriate with regards to development and understanding. Yeah, we keep hearing that all the time. We've also discovered in this document that the kids have got sexual rights, okay? And this sex education is based on a sexual and reproductive right approach. But it also tells us here as well, although it's age appropriate, sexuality education begins at birth. Now that's their words. So I think that just killed the argument for age appropriate. So anyone confused by that, age appropriate, according to this document, should start from birth. And that is exactly what our government, well, the lobbyist groups or whoever made these decisions, that's what they signed us up for. Age appropriate sex education that they believe should begin from birth. We keep hearing as well that sexual rights is a right to information and education, guys, yeah? Well, let's take a look here at these sexual rights then, shall we? So it is the highest attainment standard of sexual health, including access to sexual and reproductive health care and services. Seek and receive, impart information related to sexuality education, respect for body integrity, choose their partner, decide to be sexually active or not, consensual sexual relations, consensual marriage, decide whether or not and when to have children, and pursue a satisfying, safe and pleasurable sexual life. Yes, you did read that correct. You read that this is age appropriate and developmental sex education which should begin from birth. You'll also read other things in this document like how babies are sexual beings from birth. So you do need to look at this document yourselves, okay? Because once seen, can't unsee. We also seen about the sexual rights, how children have sexual rights. That was new to me as well until I came across these documents. Part of these sexual rights mean they can choose their partner. They can decide whether to be sexually active or not. They can decide whether to have consensual sexual relations, because they're right to have consensual sexual relations. And they can pursue a satisfying, safe and pleasurable sexual life from birth. I'm now going to skim through the matrix, and if you look at the matrix at the top, it's got the age of the child, and we start from 0 to 4. We have columns, so we have information fed into the child, the skills the child will get from that information, and then finally the attitude the child develops towards it. So like I said, there's a lot to get through. I'm going to skim through it quickly. You can look at it yourself. This is a summary. This is just a summary, an evidence-based summary for you guys. Age 0 to 4. All body parts and their functions. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. Early childhood masturbation. Talk about unpleasurable feelings in one's own body. Express own needs and wishes for boundaries, for example, in the context of playing doctor. Say yes or no. The attitude that their own experience and expression of emotion is right. Body parts. Name body parts and their functions. You've probably heard that the correct terminology for body parts safeguards. Sometimes it does, but that's not entirely true. Children are not required to actually know about the scrotum, the vulva, or even the sensation of it. What we are looking at here is biology. And when you think about biology, you can cover all reproductive organs and everything in that. We think that everyone is confused between sex, safeguarding, and biology. Now, biology is not an issue, but it seems to be an issue for our government because they've removed it from our curriculum full stop. So, other things you might have picked up on a lot was pleasurable feelings in the body, playing doctor. If you read the document, you'll see there were statements on playing doctors earlier before that. It was encouraging children to play doctors together. Yes or no feelings, and a 4-year-old know what feels right, know that they are right. A 4-year-old, does a 4-year-old know they're right? If you give a 3-year-old the wrong colour beaker, they're going to have a tantrum. Age 0 to 4. Good and bad experiences of your body. What feels good? Listen to your body. If the experience or feeling is not good, you do not always have to apply. Say yes and no. Express needs and wishes. Differentiate between good and bad secrets. Differentiate between public and private behaviour. Let me just remind you, yes, that was age 0 to 4, guys. And as you noticed, you do not always have to comply. If it doesn't feel good, you don't like it, you don't have to comply. Remember, 0 to 4. Right, differentiate between good and bad secrets. People seem to think this is a great idea. Children cannot differentiate between good and bad secrets. You want to safeguard a child, you tell them not to keep a secret. It's not on a child to keep a secret, okay? Abuse exists in secrecy. Age 4 to 6. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body. Early childhood masturbation. Appropriate sexual language. Sexual feelings, closeness, enjoyment, excitement, all part of human feelings. These should be positive feelings. They should not include coercion or harm. Use sexual language in a non-offensive way. Secret loves, first loves, infatuations and crushes. The attitude that their own experience and expression of emotion is right and important, valuing their own feelings. Masturbation again, age 4 to 6. Masturbation, enjoyment, excitement, positive experiences. This should be free from coercion or harm. Children simply don't know they're being coerced or harmed. They really don't know they're being harmed until years later. And even then, they keep it a secret. Speaking of secrets, secret loves. Secret loves, age 6 and under. And be able to use appropriate language in a non-offensive way. Appropriate sexual language in a non-offensive way. Age 4 to 6. Good and bad experiences of your body. What feels good? Listen to your body. If the experience is not good, you don't always have to comply. Abuse. There are some people who are not good. They pretend to be kind, but they are violent. The attitude that they have a choice. The attitude that my body belongs to me. Express needs and wishes. Still age 4 to 6, so we've got good and bad experiences of your body. Listen to your body. If it doesn't feel good, you don't have to comply. Don't have to comply. We're talking, this is a sex education document. This is a child age under 6. So we've got them as well being encouraged. My body, my choice. If it feels good, I should have a choice. If it doesn't feel good, go away. That's what these documents are telling these children. But then to cover it up and show that they are safeguarded from abuse, they will talk about violence in the context of abuse. Sexual abuse isn't always violent. Not in small children. Very rare is violent in small children. Okay? Especially interfamilial abuse, which is abuse at home, abuse in the family. Age 6 to 9. Love, being in love. Enjoyment and pleasure when touching one's own body, masturbation or self-stimulation, appropriate sexual language, sexual intercourse. Use sexual language in a non-offensive way. An understanding of acceptable sex, mutually consensual, voluntary, equal, age-appropriate, context-appropriate, and self-respecting. An acceptance that feelings of love are part of all emotions. The attitude that their own experience and expression of emotions is right and important. Express and communicate emotions, own wishes and needs. Secret loves, first loves, infatuations and crushes. As you can see, it didn't take long to escalate to sexual intercourse. That is age 6 to 9. The sexual intercourse must be consensual, mutual and voluntary. And it doesn't matter if it's with a secret love. I don't want to speak about that document anymore now, but I would like you all to read it for yourselves. I bet you've got lots of questions, haven't you? I bet you can't believe what you've seen. I bet you're all wondering how this has been happening. How is this possible? Why haven't the parents kicked off? They have. There's been many campaigns and they're still ongoing. Hands off our kids, let kids be kids, the School Gate campaign, Family Watch International, to name a few. Our teachers are not going to teach that, I hear you say. Well, no, as you know, it took a while for the UK to actually accept this education. So how are they going to pass it on to the parents? Well, that's where this young girl comes into it. This is UNESCO. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on UNESCO. I'm just going to show you the connection between us and them. Here, statement 1.3, guys. Why do we need a revised version of the guidance? The first version of the guidance was published by UNESCO in 2009 in partnership with the Joint United Nations Programme on HIV and AIDS and the United Nations Population Fund, United Nations Children's Fund and the World Health Organization. Since its publication, the guidance has served as an evidence-informed educational resource that is globally applicable, easily adaptable to local contexts, and it's also been used as a tool to advocate for CSE for all children, adolescents and youth as an essential component in quality education in line with their human rights. UNESCO 2009. That suggests there's more. So this is CSE, Comprehensive Sexuality Education. RSE here, SRE in England. So this is a quality education. And UNESCO is partnered with UNICEF and WHO, the World Health Organization. She is the rights-based approach. She is empowering children to exercise their rights. Their children's rights, their human rights, their bodily rights and their sexual rights. So this one is a lot kinder on the eye, okay? It's, like I said, it's beefed up with rights and it looks really good. We are going to go into it in detail for you, okay? Because obviously you need more trained eye on this one. But as I said, there are still problems with this, okay? So we do still have consent and things like that. We are told this is an evidence-based document. We're a devolved nation where our evidence should be Welsh-based, okay? Our policies are supposed to be for Welsh children. But let's just take a look at the evidence in this document. This evidence-based document that they're going to be using in Wales, in our devolved government, in our devolved education, the education that's only for Welsh children, is this section provides evidence on the impact of sexuality education on primary outcomes, sexual behaviour and health on secondary outcomes, knowledge, attitudes and other non-health behavioural outcomes. The results are based on primary primarily on the main conclusions of the two evidence reviews process commissioned by UNESCO in 2008 and 2016. The 2008 evidence review is based on results from 87 studies conducted around the world and was carried out by Douglas Kirkby of Education, Training and Research Associates. The results are published by the original guidance UNESCO 2019. The 2016 evidence review is based on results from 22 rigorous systemic reviews and 77 randomized controlled trials in a broad range of countries and contexts, in which more than half were situated in low or middle income countries. The review was conducted by Paul Montgomery and Wendy Nur of Oxford University Centre of Evidence-Based Intervention UK, and is referenced as UNESCO 2016 in this guidance. 87 studies on low or middle income countries. What they mean is a vast majority has been done in countries that haven't got no running water. They seem to believe that CSE is far more important than water. So let's go back to Wales now. Let's have a look in our document. As you can see here in the RSE Draft, which was published in February 2019, page 4 tells us to refer to UNESCO, which is the global rollout. Now let's take a look at the most recent report published on the 4th of December 2020. So this is the consultation report. And as you can see here, page 134, the explanatory memorandum explains that these headings are derived from the UNESCO Technical Guidance for Sexuality Education, which has directly informed the curriculum for Wales Guidance for Curriculum Design and Implementation, published in January 2020. In addition to that, the Minister of Education had to respond to our petition. This was the response. RSE is part of a global rollout of sexuality education which is not appropriate for this country. The Minister's response to that is, I can confirm this claim is wholly inaccurate and false. She then goes on in paragraph 5 to say, statutory guidance for RSE is currently being co-constructed to ensure that learning is developmentally appropriate, drawn on a range of evidence and expertise such as the UNESCO International Technical Guidance. This document has been referred to during the co-construction phase. However, I would like to reassure you that decisions made about the content of RSE are being taken in Wales in collaboration with teachers who are making their own judgment in view of their extensive experience of the learner at different developmental stages. Quite different from being constructed by Welsh practitioners for Welsh children, isn't it? So we've come a long way from being told that this is a Welsh education to being told that what we are saying is misinformation. Then the Minister herself saying that this is wholly inaccurate and false, but then admitting a few paragraphs later that it's co-constructed. So we've got this far at a push. There's no denying the global connection there. And I hope you'll stay tuned, follow up on a series of videos that we're producing for you so you can see what exactly hides behind these documents. Thanks for watching.